Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Caroline Kobylinsky, trauma therapist, fluent in cussing, crying, and iced coffee fueled breakthroughs. Hello, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia. And today I'm very pleased. I'm already laughing just because of this intro. I think it's beautiful. I have Caroline Kobylinsky. She's a trauma therapist, but she's fluent in cussing, crying, and iced coffee fueled breakthroughs. She brings humor to what is not always the easiest thing to do. And I really appreciate her being here. She's got a great story. Thank you so much, Caroline, for being here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to. Yeah, I think that if you can't laugh at all this stuff, as a trauma therapist, there's a lot of really heavy stuff that happens, and if you can't find the humor in it, I mean, you're just kind of cooked.
Yeah.
So, humor is a great piece of what I do.
I love it. So here we go. We're going to start off with tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to move on to telling our listeners how you've helped people who have eating disorders. I love that. Thank you so much again for being here.
Okay. Yeah, so I have had bipolar 2 disorder since I was little. I did, in grad school, I did a paper, like a case study on bipolar 2, and I was like, I've literally had this my whole life. So, as a kiddo, I was extremely emotionally dysregulated, and nobody really knew what to do with me. I was the third of 4 children, and my sister is a type 1 diabetic. My older brother has horrific ADHD, and my mom homeschools. And so there wasn't a lot of space to kind of figure out what was going on with me. And so I have, in writing my story and figuring out kind of how do I concisely tell it, I have realized that my body dysmorphia has really been there since I was 4. My mom said that I would stand in front of the mirror and pull the skin on my stomach and say I'm fat. And so, from a little tiny person, I knew something wasn't right. And as a kiddo, they don't have the frontal lobe development to be like, maybe I have bipolar 2. And so I really hung all of my anxiety on my body. And so that is what has really driven my eating disorder for all these years. So I have been in recovery since 2020. It almost my ED almost ruined my marriage. I got married in 2018, and I could no longer purge. And so I started over drinking. And so my husband and I went on vacation, and it just turned out to be a complete gong show. And he was like, you have to do something. So got into recovery right before COVID, which was pretty interesting. So I did all of my work over Zoom. And there have been studies that show that kind of the mirroring neurons are not there when we're on like a screen to screen, but that's where I did the majority of my recovery. And so I'm a huge fan of telehealth. I think that it gives people access to therapy that they may not have had before. So a little aside. But so I kind of off and on, I was never satisfied with my body. Growing up, I always had discomfort with my body, but it wasn't until I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, that it really took off. And when I was 26 or 27, that was the first time, I guess that was the second time that I really moved into exercise bulimia. And so I was working out, at the beginning, I was getting in shape and I was gaining muscle, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Then I figured out that I could really avoid everything else. And so I was in the gym for multiple hours a day and being really restricting on my food. And then my early 30s were really where I started purging. And so I had gotten a job where I could no longer work out like I was working out. And so I had to figure out a different way to make that happen. And so I was having a very low number or amount of calories, and then I would binge at night, and then I would purge. And then that got to where I would really purge after any meal that I ate that wasn't, I was doing. And this is like my kind of beef with a lot of, they're like get rich quick schemes, but for eating disorders. And so I was doing one of those where there was a lot of protein bars and a lot of meal replacements. And so I would do that, but if I would ever eat, purge. And so, you know, the thing about purging is, or my thing, you get endorphin release after you purge. And so after I would puke, I would have like this really, like, I'm the most powerful woman in the world. And so that's what feeds the whole eating disorder, is because you get a dopamine hit, an endorphin release after you do it. And so, and it also allowed me to kind of eat whatever I wanted to, and then I didn't have to pay the consequence for it. So, that I didn't go to the dentist for years because I was afraid that I was going to get caught of what I was doing, because it erodes your teeth, obviously. Since I got into recovery, I have learned more about how to have harm reduction with that. And even though I've been in recovery for 5 years and have a really good handle on stuff, there's still days where when I'm uncomfortable in my body, I think, okay, I could do that, and I know the information around it now to not have the consequences that I was having before. And so, I mean, that's the insidious nature of eating disorder, right? Because we are, even though we have found coping skills and all of these things, that voice is still there. And so I think it's really important. One of the things that I do with my clients is I have them name their eating disorder. So my eating disorder is critical Carissa. And my husband knows all about her and what her face looks like and how I start acting around things, and ask me. He's like, critical Carissa is telling you all kinds of shit, and it's lying. He also can tell when my eating disorder, when Carissa is judging him for the way that he is eating. I mean, it's so, like, as I'm sitting here kind of relaying this, it's so interesting that even in recovery, we still have these thoughts and we don't act on them, but still the insidious nature and that attachment to our eating disorder is, I mean, it's really, really powerful. So before I got into recovery, I lost a lot of things. And I decided that I wasn't willing to lose my marriage. And so when I would be in situations where there was food, I would either be focused on how much I was going to eat or wasn't going to eat. And so that resulted in me losing friendships because I would get so wound up about the food that I would withdraw, and then wanted my friends to withdraw with me. Well, they didn't want to do that. They wanted to stay at the party. And so in my sickness, I took that to be rejection. And so that ended several friendships in my life, just because of how much space it took up. So when I got into recovery, I was seeing my eating disorder therapist once a week, and then I was seeing a dietitian once a week, because I had been so rigid about my food for so long. I don't think that I would have been able to be successful in the beginning without a nutritionist to kind of hold me accountable and teach me about eating. One of the things that she really taught me and that I work on with clients is there's several reasons why we eat, and being aware of those, that's what the thing is. It's not we don't do them, but my question to my clients is, are you physically hungry? Are you emotionally hungry? Are you mentally hungry? Are you spiritually hungry? And none of those reasons are bad to eat. But when we are operating out of that in a way that we don't know, we get ourselves into a position where later on we're really disappointed in what we've done. Um, and I still compete. Last week something happened and I have a really complex caseload and I have started seeing teenagers again. And let me tell you, if you want to feel like a failure, sit with 16-year-olds because they will make you question your whole existence and why you're on earth. So I had just had a really difficult day and I texted my husband and I said, hey, will you bring me this certain thing? He was like, absolutely. And I sat and I ate. I didn't overeat. I ate until I was satiated and full, but it helped me and I was able to move on with the rest of my day. And so I think there can be this really push-pull, especially if you're working with a therapist that doesn't understand eating disorders and the nuance of them, that they don't want you to engage in that at all. And so that's not helpful and it's not reasonable, especially in the beginning. And like I said, I've been in recovery for 5 years and still I have those things. One of the things that was really helpful to me in the beginning was learning about how I dissociate when I eat. And so I remember so dead on. I was in the kitchen, eating something, and my husband called from the other room and he was like, you're dissociating in there. And I looked down and I had eaten half the thing. I hadn't tasted any of it. I wasn't paying attention. I just was eating to help me kind of process what was happening. And so I think that we were talking about before we started that our eating disorders are our best friend. They're our worst enemy, but they're also our best friend. And they protect us and they help us live. And so learning that, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and to that, what I was thinking about, like I told you, I moved around a lot, but my bulimia was the one thing that came with me everywhere, right? It was so that
Absolutely.
exactly, and saying, let go of it. But yeah, but you might leave me and someone else might leave me, or I might be uprooted again. And that was my constant. It wasn't a healthy constant, but it was my constant. It was my through and talking about disassociation. Yeah, when you're bulimia, you're just eating and thinking and processing things, but you
Yes.
don't even taste the food. It's just and it's filling in something, whether it's anger or any kind of feeling that you're having, loneliness, whatever it is. But it was interesting that you said that because what I did for becoming, it's 15 years recovery. It was getting rid of my best friend bulimia and making food my best friend. See, bulimia distorted my perception of food and what it was there.
I love that.
Right. And so comfort foods, yeah, sure. I make, earlier I had a pâté de foie sandwich with mustard on it because my mom used to make that when we were little. And I'll
I
have
love
it.
that.
So I don't, and I was lucky enough to know there was a big thing, and I always bring her up, Joan Borazensko. She wrote a really good book. Can't remember the title right now, but she's awesome. It's in my book, the referenced, where you were talking about eating till you're satiated. That means you have to eat slowly. And when you're bulimic, you don't eat slowly. It's just
yes.
So
right.
You can get to look like you're 9 months pregnant without even knowing, and you only feel it because in 20 minutes you've consumed 3,000 calories of something. Right?
Yes.
Right. So yeah, it was disassociated. It was basically breaking up with bulimia and getting together with my food, and that really made a difference. And I love that you say bulimia is a liar, whereas food isn't. So, better friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I love the way that you just said that. I'm going to use that for my clients. And so working through the helpfulness of of your eating disorder, there are no bad parts of us, but there are parts of us that are more helpful than others. And so, thinking through, especially you moved a lot, and so you needed that consistency.
Mhm.
And while that was not helpful, and it's not helpful now, it served a purpose then. And so, with compulsive behaviors, and eating disorders are a compulsive behavior. They're different than others like gambling or sex or alcohol or, whatever it is. They are compulsive behaviors. And because what makes them be compulsive behaviors is because they distill the anxiety. And so it's this OCD loop of I have anxiety, I'm going to do this thing, and then my anxiety is going to be better. And so, which again, to not having an eating disorder specialist, they're not going to understand that. And they are, I guess the thing that a lot of times happens with eating disorders is the person that's suffering gets blamed. Like, this is your fault and you're not trying hard enough. And they don't understand the secure attachment that goes with it. And the secure attachment says, I'm okay, you're okay. And in the beginning, that totally works because it's helpful. And then it kind of moves down from anxious to avoidant to disorganized. And in disorganized attachment, I'm not okay and you're not okay and I'm too tired to care. And so that's where we kind of get with our eating disorders is this place where it's not really working, but it's also kind of working. And it has become such a habitual thing that to give that up would just be unconscionable. One of the books that I love, and this is like an old book, is Life Without Ed. That was, I can't remember, it's on my shelf. I can't remember who wrote that. That was a huge one for me because it really personifies what our eating disorders look like. That is one of my primers that I have people read in the beginning, and I have their family members read. I think that's one of the ways that my husband really understood Carissa is because he listened to that audiobook and really realized the way that our eating disorders talk to us, and that it's not this just like thing that we're just like, oh, I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. It's this constant conversation back and forth. And so like I remember the first time that I was ever at a party and I realized that I didn't have food points. And it was at my aunt's house, and she makes like the best guacamole ever. Like, she's like, anytime we do anything, we're like, Jennifer, bring your guacamole. And so when I left, I realized that I had a little bit, I think. Like, the whole thing was I couldn't even really remember exactly what was there because that just wasn't the focus of what I was doing. Like, I really enjoyed the time with my family and all of that. And it's such a fond memory to me because that's the first time I can remember in years and years and years and years that I was able to just be there and be present with the people around me. I mean, it was really a beautiful moment.
Isn't that it? That's a gift. Oh
So,
my goodness. Because I struggled for 30 years, and the last 15 years, just being able to sit down, and I love that no food noise. It's just, it, it- it's, it's a gift to me. Like, I'm sitting there going, wow, like I don't have to worry anymore. And yeah, uh, I can't even begin to say. Sometimes I go, why did I ever do that for 30 years, struggle with it for 30 years when it's so beautiful not to have this, right? It's like, yeah,
yes.
yeah. So, and enjoying your
Well, and one
family.
of the things that I have my client, oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, like I said, since I had lost those relationships, and again, this is a specific food, and I don't want to trigger anybody, but my mom has the best buttermilk pancake recipe. Like, it wins awards. It's so good. And that's one of the things that my family loves to do is make breakfast together. And so every time though we would have that, I would be so focused on, okay, I can eat some, but I can't eat a lot. And if I eat some, is it going to trigger me to where I have to eat all of them? And then I'm at my parents' house, so I can't go purge. And I mean, it was this whole conversation that I'm having with Carissa of like, how are we going to make this work? And so, I started having protein that we added to it and all of this other stuff so I could make it okay in my mind to be able to have the pancakes. And so it just, again, you have to, it's so logistical also how you're going to engage in this. And I think that's part of the thing that takes up so much room is because you're having to constantly like strategize. How do you do the thing? And so one of the things that I have my clients do is I have them write a letter to their eating disorder after we've named it, have them write a letter to their eating disorder as their best friend and their worst enemy, and then we read those out loud. And I typically make a copy or I have them give me theirs. And then when they are getting triggered by either one of them, I'm able to pull back out those letters and, talk to them about, okay, this is what we said. When your eating disorder wasn't ruling the roost, like this is what we said it did to you. And so I think that for us, just having that kind of tangible thing, I think is really, really helpful in working through all of this.
I love
So
that.
I got into recovery. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said I love that. I love the letter idea. Like, I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
So I got into recovery and ended up, I am trained in trauma modalities, and so I have an EMDR therapist and an accelerated resolution therapist who have both been really, really helpful to me in processing my eating disorders. And I'll give you my website and put that on there. There's some kind of explanation of what that is. I don't want to go into all of that.
Yeah, you have a very, I went on your website, like there's the stuff that you wrote, and some of them I never even heard of before, which is really interesting. Of all the different traumas that you deal with, like it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I could actually, I
Thank
could
you.
connect with the OCD and the anxiety. I'm very much those two. Not nearly as bad now at this age, but I still have it. I still, anxiety, that definitely I still have. But luckily
Yeah.
I don't go to food anymore for that. It's like,
Right. Well, and that's the thing. There's so many coping skills out there that when we're only engaged in our eating disorders, we're missing out on all of this learning from life.
Yep.
And I love that you don't have to hang your anxiety on that anymore. You're open to new tools. I think that's huge.
Yeah. And being acutely aware too, because I think too what bulimia will quite often do is you might be feeling anxiety, OCD, and all of that, but you're not thinking, you're not aware, you're just going to food. Once you quit your bulimia, I said quit it. It's really interesting how there's that process, and particularly for the first 6 months to me was really big in dealing with my emotions. Because I didn't have my food to run to, dealing with all of that, and being acutely aware of, okay, so I never really felt like going back to it after I was a weird one. Like my sister helped me out, told me that, we love you, we know you're doing it, we're here. And the next day I realized there was nothing reason for me. But
wow, that's like total deliverance of the Lord.
It really
that is crazy.
Seriously. And so it wasn't that I didn't have some quirky thoughts, that happens, but I did not want to go back. But then I'm sitting there going, oh gosh, now I have to deal with, I'm incredibly emotional and I didn't want to be, and I'm, and I feel anxiety and I'm feeling things. And so you start to feel, whereas bulimia numbed it. It was a great number.
Yes, absolutely.
So learning to deal with all those emotions was very interesting. Now, I don't care if I have to cry, I cry. I don't have to be that person who, strong and
Yeah, yeah, girl, I cry all the time.
and cussing. I
All
love
the time
that.
I cry. Yeah,
Cussing, cussing, crying. I just love it. But
yeah.
and speaking of which,
Um,
share
oh, go ahead.
with our listeners where they can find you, because that's, I think, can be very important.
Yeah, so I am licensed in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Alabama, and Colorado. And I'm working on getting licensed in Georgia and Arkansas. The state of Arkansas is the most ass backwards. Um, it's taking me forever to get licensed there, and it's making me crazy. Um, but in certain pockets of the U.S., there's not a ton of qualified eating disorder therapists. And so, especially with big college towns, depending on what's going on there is, going to school, going to university is such a big change. And so, being around, going through Rush or all these different bodies and all of this stuff can really be triggering for people. And so that's my heart behind being licensed in different states.
Good for you.
And then my website is cwkcounseling.com. And like I said, it has the different things that I treat, but then also the different modalities that I use. And I think that, it's important. I have a client that was dealing with another therapist through kind of a different avenue. And the therapist acted so crazy. And I was like, this is why you should never see a therapist that you do not have a personal reference for, because therapists can be nuts and they can do a lot of damage. And especially working with one that doesn't have an eating disorder therapist. I had the same therapist for 6 years probably. And when I started working on my eating disorder, I'll never forget, she gave me this book. And now that I am treating stuff, I told her, I was like, don't give anybody that book. That book is horrible. That book is not helpful. And so I started seeing this other therapist that is an eating disorder therapist. And now she just is she's part of that, but I just see her for everything. But I want to come back to the EMDR piece, because in starting to work on that, with the EMDR, there is a lie, there's a negative cognition of I am whatever, I am broken, I am, whatever the thing is. And then there's a positive belief of, if you could work through this, what would you want to say? And I think in the eating disorder world, at the beginning, I just wanted to not hate myself. Mm-hmm. And that was as far as I could get with a positive thought. And so through that trauma work, I was able to come to a place of, I am fearfully and wonderfully created by God. And that just, if you would have told me that I would be able to get that, I would have laughed you out of the room. And some days I feel like that. Some days I look and I'm like, hey, this is great. But a lot of days I just live in body neutrality. And I think that's the goal. And I think that that body neutrality doesn't get talked about a whole lot. No. Because we live in such a thin-centric society and diet culture and all of these things. And there's this idea that if you don't love your body, then you need to lose weight or you're failing in some way. And that's just not true. Really understanding that part of things and being able to have that be the goal, I think, is a lot more freeing than, if you get into recovery, you're going to love your body every day. That's a big fat lie. And that's not true at all. And if it was, you are a liar. And so realizing that is across the spectrum of people that are in the body that they want, that they're not happy with it either. And so there just is always this moving target, I think, especially in the society that we live in, always this moving target of, well, you lose this amount of weight, well, you could just lose 5 more pounds. And I think that's how a lot of people get sucked into the eating disorder patterns, because we live in a society that's like, my grandmother always has said for years, I'm one good stomach bug away from my gold weight. And I mean, that's just sort of the way that we all live. And so um, doing that trauma work around your eating disorder and kind of, what's the thing that's underneath it. And so for me, that was my bipolar 2. It sounds like for you, it was moving around everywhere. And so the eating disorder is not the problem. The eating disorder is the solution. And eventually we get to a place where the solution is no longer helpful. But at least for a while, it keeps us safe. And so I think there has to be a lot of respect held for that
That was
when we're trying to get into recovery.
Yeah, that was one of the one psychiatrist I did have. He was good, but he didn't quite understand. He couldn't connect with it. But what he said a couple of things. He says you're like a China doll. He goes cold on the inside, but very fragile. I love that.
Oh,
And
I love that.
right. And then he also said that take this as your bulimia probably saved you from doing something worse.
Oh, I love that too.
Because it's a slow suicide, really. It can be perceived as that because it is
Yeah.
you're hurting. You're harming yourself. There's no
Yes.
about that. Um, but he said, but it probably says so. It gave me enough time to get through all of that. That might have been something worse, and give me time to recover instead of be somewhere else, like what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah.
So those
Well, and
were
I
two things
think
that I took away with him. It was he was good, not like this other lady who told me that quit now or you're gonna die. She was a psychiatrist and she told me that. I'm
not helpful.
like, okay,
Yeah.
that's not helpful.
Yeah. Not helpful at all.
So anyway,
And one of the advances that we are seeing in the eating world is incorporating the bulimia piece. And it used to be, and it's still so thought of, that you have to be a white girl that weighs 80 pounds to have an eating disorder. And that just is not true. Like atypical anorexia, that's people that are in a normal body or a large body. And the same thing with bulimia. I mean, we have this idea of what eating disorders look like, and the more we learn, the more inclusive it becomes, which I think is a really, really huge goal for recovery.
absolutely, absolutely. I love that you brought that up. Thank you very much. Well, I really appreciate you being here, and this is really, really inspiring. A lot of things that you talked about that really I had never heard of, but I love the body neutrality. At my age right now, that's where I'm at, and I kind of like it. There's
Mm-hmm.
times I sit there and go, well, I might want to work out a little bit. Your tummy's getting a little bit flabby, but it's not in a mean way. It's kind of just, saying you
Yeah.
can do this, but then I go, no, I don't feel like it right now. Maybe someday. Like I'm not so hard on
Yeah.
myself anymore. And then the other thing too, quickly, there's things like, oh my gosh, my hair is getting thinner, like I'm in my 60s, or my eyebrows are going away. But then I remember my nephew who passed away at 23 of cancer, and he missed his eyebrows and then he lost his hair. So every time I go through anything, even like my fingers, if they're not doing something right, I go, but at least I have them. At least I have eyebrows. At least I
Oh,
have
I love that.
at least
Yeah.
I have toes to keep me, because I had a friend who lost a couple of toes and it was hard to walk. So the gratitude of, yeah, okay, and at least I have a body that functions and it's healthy.
Yes.
And it may not be perfect, but it is to me. It does everything I need it to do,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I want to end with this of, body gratitude of when we are, um, because we all have certain triggers of our body parts that are things that we don't like. But really learning about the biology of the body and like, no, this is like you just talked about your toes. Your toes are what help you balance. I always think of Cinderella when she puts her foot in that glass slipper and she doesn't have any toes. And I'm like, that's totally,
What is that?
it's a ridiculous show. Yeah.
Oh no.
But like our toes are what help us balance, and our arms are what, we're able to lift kids and nieces and nephews and groceries, and our legs are what carry us through so that we can do the things that we love. So I think that body gratitude to me is a huge piece, and learning about what our bodies do and why they do them, I think can really help that gratitude.
I believe so too. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I could probably be on here for another 2 hours with you talking about this stuff, but we do have to go. Again, thanks again, Caroline. You've been wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.